When I was a kid, I guess you could say I didn't have the best childhood. There was no single thing that made it especially horrible. Well, at least I don't think so. I was just unfortunate enough to have a number of things happening at the same time. There's one story I tell people that always seems to put it in perspective for them. Anyone who knows me now knows that I'm overweight. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I've lived with it for long enough at this point. But I've always been fat, even as a kid. Back then, I had this problem with eating candy and sweets. It was more like an addiction, or maybe a coping mechanism. I ate candy constantly. I have no idea how much I must have eaten, but it was surely an ungodly amount. There was hardly a time when I wasn't sneaking in a few pieces of chocolate around the corner, or in the restrooms at school, or even in the locker room showers. And of course, it made me fat. But it also destroyed my teeth. Not only was I unable to stop myself from eating candy, but I could never seem to bring myself to brush my teeth, or floss, or even rinse with mouthwash. By the time I was 13 and had all of my adult teeth, most of them were already so decayed and rotting that I couldn't even chew regular food with them. But when I tried to ask my mom to take me to the dentist, that's the part of the story where you might start to see why I tended to do such self-destructive things. Mom, can you please take me to the dentist? My teeth really hurt.
I can't afford a dentist. Don't be so needy. Take care of your teeth.
That was about as much love and care as I ever got from my mother. Even still, I can't say she deserves all the blame. Lord knows she tried. My dad left when I was little and she'd been stuck supporting me ever since, working 2 minimum wage jobs just to keep us afloat. The constant stress and hardship over the years took a toll on her. I only vaguely remember days from when I was very young when she was kind and sweet and motherly, but now she was cold and bitter and spiteful. But one thing I had always looked up to about my mother was her teeth. Whereas I had nasty black and rotten stumps sticking out of my bleeding gums, my mom had perfectly straight white teeth. I always wish I could have perfect teeth like her, but I was, of course, too far gone into my depression to take any sort of charge over my oral hygiene. So for a while, I just lived with it. But I swear, out of everything I can remember ever happening to me, the worst of them all were all those weeks I spent in the excruciating pain of each and every one of my teeth being hollowed out to the root. If you've never felt it before, I don't think there's any proper way to describe it. I would lie awake at night, quietly sobbing, trying not to move a muscle or I'd be stabbed with pain throughout my whole face. The only time I'd ever get sleep was when the pain was so bad, I simply passed out from it in some kind of shock reaction. But I think I was even crying in my sleep, because every so often, my mother would burst into my room and start hitting me, yelling things like,
"What do you think you're doing howling like a dog in the middle of the night? Don't you know I've got work in the morning? Maybe I should just go in tired and get fired so I'd have an excuse to throw your sorry behind out on the street."
Mom, please, just take me to the dentist. It hurts so bad.
If you didn't want to be in pain, you should have thought about that before you ate all that candy, fatty. You know I can't afford to take you to some crook dentist. Just deal with it, you little baby.
I sure tried to deal with it, but I couldn't. After enough time and enough pain, I started to go a little crazy. Maybe that kind of response to stress runs in my family. My brain started thinking up strange solutions to my predicament. I felt so stupid and guilty for not taking good care of my teeth. All I wanted was a second chance. If I could just start over with my teeth and do better from then on out. And so, I tried to play dentist myself. I cooked up some delusional plan to grow new healthy teeth. All I needed to do was make room, to get rid of the ruined teeth that were in the way. If I did that, I thought, the new teeth would come in to replace them. One night, after my mom had fallen asleep, I went looking for some string, but we were so poor we didn't even have much of that lying around. I had to take the laces out of both of my shoes and tie them together to have enough length for the operation. The operation. I think that's what I called it in my head, but there was nothing surgical about it. All I did was tie one end of the string to my door handle, and the other end around the base of the tooth. Even just the act of loosely tying a string around one of my teeth sent shockwaves of pain through my whole body. With the string anchored, I slammed my door shut, ripping that rotten shard of a tooth out of my gums. I whimpered and fell to my knees in pain, trying not to scream, just letting all the blood drool out of my mouth. But after a few minutes, when I knew my mom hadn't woken up to the sound of the door slamming, I actually felt better. There was no longer any pain where that tooth had been, because there was now no tooth there to feel pain at all. I think I smiled then, at that realization, believing that what I was doing was working somehow. I got up off the ground and got ready to do it again. I retied the string to another tooth and did the same thing, slamming the door shut and ripping the tooth out of my gums. It didn't hurt as bad the second time. Actually, every time I did it hurt a little bit less. Yeah, that's right. I did it many times. I didn't stop until there was not a single tooth left in my mouth. Just a wad of bleeding, infected gums, and a face covered in blood. And of course, that's when I went to my mom's room to wake her up to this nightmare of my creation.
Mom, I did not hear you.
Huh? What? Wait, what the hell did you do to your mouth? You idiot!
I took out my old teeth, Mom. I wanted pretty teeth, like you.
Oh, like me, huh? You mean like these?
I screamed. I had no idea my mom had dentures until then. But obviously, I too had to get accustomed to them soon after. But you know, I was the only kid at school with perfectly straight white teeth without ever having braces. I finally felt relieved for the first time in years.
My name is Candace, and I'm a single mother with 2 kids. My daughter Sarah is 7 and my son Tommy is 5. They were both due for their 6-month cleaning, and our regular dentist recently retired, leaving me to find a new one. Their previous dentist was very kind and always took really great care of my kids, so I was hoping to find one just like him. However, it was more difficult than expected. After months and months of strenuous searching, one dentist, Dr. Teal, had caught my attention. With great customer reviews and a 4.8-star rating, I set up an appointment, not knowing that this would be the biggest mistake of my life. Upon arrival, Sarah got her teeth cleaned efficiently, leaving Tommy to go next. Dr. Teal walked into the waiting room once he finished with Tommy's cleaning, and it was safe to say that it didn't look like he had good news. It's not looking good, Candace. Tommy here has a couple of cavities.
I was afraid of that. I've been letting him brush his own teeth.
It's all right. Don't beat yourself up. They all have to learn this somehow, and these things happen. Listen, I just had a cancellation if you'd like to get those taken care of right now.
Really? That would be great. I wasn't sure when I could get out of work for an appointment anytime soon.
Great.
Are you gonna be alright while I take your sister back to school?
Mom, I'm 5. I'm not a baby.
Okay, I'll be back as soon as I can.
I checked Sarah out and drove to a McDonald's drive-thru to purchase her a Happy Meal. I figured since Tommy was a big boy now, I could take a little extra time. I dropped Sarah off at school and drove back to the dentist. To my surprise, Dr. Teal had already completed all of Tommy's fillings. However, when Tommy tried to stand on his feet, he seemed very woozy and unstable. I know a thing or two about funny gas and how my kids responded to it, but this time, Tommy seemed more agitated than usual.
Tommy, are you okay, buddy?
I am fine, Mom. You gave me a shot in the gums and I didn't feel a thing. I told Dr. Teal that my son was not acting like himself, and he informed me that they had updated the funny gas formula. With this information, he proceeded to inform me that within 5 hours, Tommy would be back to his usual self. I'll be honest, I felt a bit uneasy with this response, but I decided to give it time to wear off. I kept Tommy home the rest of the day, and he passed out after eating some lunch. I occasionally checked in on him, and he seemed to be okay, until I went to wake him up to retrieve Sarah from school. I entered his room and gently shook him, calling out his name.
Tommy, wake up. It's time to go get Sarah.
Piss off! Let me sleep!
Thomas Alexander, you do not talk to me that way. I am your mother.
I'll talk to you however I want. Now while you're out, get me a soda and some candy. I was shocked at Tommy's vocabulary. I grabbed his arm and dragged him to the car while the little squirt kicked and screamed at me. He shouted profanities at me the entire drive to school. And when Sarah got in the car, she had to sit in the front seat so that Tommy wouldn't hit her. He screamed and cursed at us the entire way home. I locked Tommy in his room and immediately called the dentist's office. The phone rang numerous times before reaching their already full voicemail box. I decided that I would give him until tomorrow for the funny gas to wear off. That night, I had Tommy sleep in my room so that I could keep a close eye on him. He slept throughout the night, and the next day he seemed like he was back to his normal self, so I got him ready for school. The day went great, and I nearly forgot about his hellish behavior from the day before. He even apologized for talking the way he did, and of course, I couldn't stay mad at him. However, the next day he seemed to get worse. He was more demanding and being extremely rude. At some point, I heard a scream in the kitchen from the laundry room and rushed out to see that Tommy was chasing Sarah with a knife.
Tommy! What do you think you're doing? Mommy, Tommy grabbed a knife and said he wanted to chop the top of my head off.
Get out of my way! I managed to snatch the knife from him and he ran upstairs to his room, cackling demonically. I comforted Sarah until she felt safe again. I couldn't avoid the sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach that something was very, very wrong with Tommy. He was usually such a sweet kid, and he adored his big sister. Even if Sarah made him mad, he would have never grabbed a knife. I tried calling the dentist again, but this time the number was out of service. I didn't know what to do, and I was scared. That night, after I put Sarah to bed, I went to get Tommy from his room. I opened the door and he held up a picture he drew of Sarah, with half of her head cut off. Tommy's picture brought shivers down my spine as I stuttered.
Tommy, let's go get Sarah and go for a drive.
Are we getting ice cream?
We sure are, buddy.
We quickly drove to the emergency room and explained the situation to the doctor. Tommy was taken for an MRI and unfortunately he came back with some horrible news. Candace, I need to speak with you about Tommy.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, he's not dead or dying, but your son is suffering from some severe brain damage.
Brain damage?
Well, we ran some tests and found that a chemical he had breathed in had crossed some wires in his brain. Has your son been around any chemicals lately?
No, he was at the dentist the other day. He mentioned that he had come out with a new formula in their funny gas.
Which dentist did you go to? I told him about Dr. Teal, and the doctor informed me that Tommy was one of a few patients that had suffered some brain damage after the funny gas they were given. He also told me how the dentist's office had been shut down, and the guy was on the run. My stomach dropped when the doctor told me that they would have to give Tommy a lobotomy. I thought they didn't do those anymore, but apparently in Tommy's case, it was the only option. I eventually agreed to have the lobotomy performed on him. They kept him in the hospital for a couple of days for observation. My sweet Tommy recovered just fine and seemed to be back to himself. A couple of months went by and we thought we were in the clearing. One night after falling asleep, I woke up to something dripping on my face. I looked up to find Tommy holding a cleaver and what looked like a rat in his hand, holding them over my head. I made Sarah different. Come see her, Mommy. I rushed out of bed to Sarah's room and turned on the light. She was laying in her bed, with the top of her head chopped off. Blood and brains saturated her pillows. She looked as though she was smiling, just like she was in his hand-drawn picture.
Tommy! What have you done?
When you go to the dentist, have you ever wondered why it's so common to see some little kid bawling and screaming out of fear in the waiting room? Have you ever wondered what's going through their heads? What torture they must be expecting to endure? Of course, most of the time, they're just overreacting, as little kids tend to do. But don't write them off just yet, because there is something real to that childish phobia. I'm sure everyone can relate to having to sit through something uncomfortable at the dentist. But there have been some dentists out there who really do justify the screams of small children. And I can attest. When I was about 10 years old, I was having some trouble with losing the last of my baby teeth. Well, just one of them, actually. I only had a few left, but there was one that had gotten fused to the bone of my jaw. It isn't actually uncommon. And like me, most people find out during routine x-rays. My family dentist said that most of the remaining baby teeth were fine and would fall out normally, but there was one that would need to be surgically removed. He recommended us to some sort of pediatric specialist in oral surgery. I was nervous about what they called surgery. I mean, I was only 10, but my parents told me they would numb me so it wouldn't hurt at all. And I'd had regular experience at the dentist in the past. I wasn't one of those little crying kids. I didn't try to get out of it or anything. My main concern was just making sure I would get all my adult teeth. But on the day of, I got a bit anxious. The music in the waiting room was oddly loud, much louder than any dentist or doctor I'd ever been to. My mom didn't seem to notice. She checked me in and found us a seat, and after a little while of being bored in the soulless waiting room, it was my turn. The dentist came out of the back all sweaty and out of breath for some reason. He had a clipboard in his hand from which he read and called out my name.
Alex, you're up next.
Go on. Get up, Alex. Don't be shy.
I timidly stepped toward him, and as I got close, I noticed two things. One, he was really fat, especially in the gut, which was right at eye level. And two, he reeked like he hadn't showered in a long time.
There you are. How many teeth you leaving in the office today?
Oh, just the one.
My mom didn't seem to notice what was making me clam up. I followed him into the back section, though I really didn't want to. However, everything seemed somewhat normal until I hopped up into the chair and he began to lower me down as he checked over the x-ray one more time. Right after that was when things suddenly went wrong. He didn't ask for me to open my mouth. He just grabbed my face and rested his arm on my neck and chest as he pinched open my jaw to shine a light inside. And of course, that's when he asked his questions.
Are you afraid of needles, Alex?
I couldn't speak because he was holding my jaw open. I tried to say no, but all that came out was some kind of whimper.
Can you stay still for me, Alex?
I squirmed from the discomfort, unable to respond.
Well, I guess not then.
Then, out of nowhere, he started clamping down on my arms and legs, then strapped them into some kind of medical straitjacket. I screamed and tried to break free, but this guy was big.
Mommy! Mom! Help me!
The dentist pushed my forehead down and strapped my head into the device that kept me from being able to move. Then he got to work. There were no shots, no numbing agents, no help from the nurse. He just started cutting into the flesh of my mouth, digging at the roots of my baby tooth. I tried to scream so much, but I almost choked on the blood that was spilling into my mouth. And when he put that vacuum tube in there and turned it on, I don't think there was any way someone in the waiting room could hear me, no matter how loud I tried to get.
Well, that wasn't so bad, now was it? You know what, though? I know I saw a few more baby teeth in there than just the one. What kind of dentist would I be if I only did a quarter of a job?
I couldn't even protest with screams anymore. I was in shock from the pain. I couldn't do anything, and nobody helped me as that man stuck pliers into my mouth and ripped out 3 more teeth. When he was done, he shoved gauze into my mouth and left without saying a word. For a few minutes there, I was alone, just in pain. When he came back, my teeth were nowhere to be seen, but I was finally unstrapped. Unable to stop from shaking, some random nurse basically dragged me back into the waiting room. My mother lost it when she saw me.
What did you do to him?
I don't really remember what happened after that. I passed out or zoned out, and all I can recall is hearing some shouting and fighting, and getting taken straight to the hospital afterwards, where I finally got some painkillers. My mother sued that guy along with a bunch of other parents whom he'd done something similar to. He lost his license soon after. I just hope he gets thrown in jail one of these days.
A local dentist accused of hurting children in his care has voluntarily agreed to give up his license to practice in Florida.
Investigates a local dentist accused of abuse. He is denying those allegations.
Today, people gathered outside Dr. Howard Schneider's office to protest his dental practice. While our crew was there, one woman walked up and actually put her hands on Dr. Schneider. You see the nurse right there getting him away and took him inside. Then that woman just ran off.